Now, this is a game that Aggies across the country have had circled for quite a while. You know, the year hasn't gone as we had hoped, but this one constant remains. Us Aggies don't like Lane Kiffin very much. In fact, we dislike him. But you know what? It seems like that feeling's mutual. Lane always has something to say about Jimbo, about Texas A&M's program, our ability to collect talent, as he puts it. He seems to have an issue with all of that. And I really think he had an issue with the whole Jimbo Saban dispute a couple summers ago. Of course, Saban's his daddy, so he loves him, he defends him, and he goes to bat for him. Naturally, they work together. Lane's become a better coach after working with Nick Saban, and Nick Saban's the greatest to ever do it. It all makes sense. Lane has been very vocal about his stances. And that's okay. We love a good rivalry. We love a good back and forth. That's what makes these games so much more entertaining. And we got a good one coming up, folks. I know Texas A&M hasn't had the season they had hoped for, but I believe that this will be a competitive, close football game. So let's talk about A&M. Let's talk about Ole Miss, some of their strengths. What are A&M's chances of going on the road and finally getting over that hump that is winning a game on the road? I believe it is 8 consecutive road losses for Jimbo and the Aggies. Something's got to give. You hope. You hope that trend breaks. No trend lasts forever. Will this be the one they break through? Us Aggies really hope so because there's a lot on the line right now. As I mentioned in some recent videos, A&M's future is really, really in flux right now. Finish strong, and you're looking at Jimbo picking up where he left off on hopefully a strong end to this season going into next year. But you lose this one, and you snowball the end of this season, you could be looking at some major changes in the program. So this is a backs against the wall game for A&M. But for Ole Miss, everything's on the table for them. Huge game versus Georgia looming. One of the biggest games in recent program history for Ole Miss if they're able to beat the Aggies. So this is a really big moment in time for both teams' futures for very different reasons. So let's talk about these teams. Let's talk about this matchup. I'm really excited for it. But first, if you guys like this kind of content, if you're an Aggie, if you're an Ole Miss fan, if you're a football fan, please consider subscribing. It helps me greatly. We're trying to grow this thing, bring more fans into the discussion, whether you're an Aggie or whether you're someone else talking trash to us. We welcome it all. We love that college football back and forth. So consider jumping in, commenting. We have a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. Let's get into it. So once again, Ole Miss brings a plethora of offensive weapons to the table with great scheming, great ways to get their playmakers involved in the game. Something that A&M has struggled with recently. They have a bunch of weapons. It starts with their running back, Quinshon Judkins. Obviously, us Aggies know very well exactly what he brings to the table. He's explosive, he's vicious, he's a great tackle breaker, and he can change a game by himself. But he's not the only one there. Ulysses Bentley, the backup, he's a very good change of pace back. He has very explosive speed. He hits the hole really hard. Those two guys, you're going to have your hands full as a front seven. Last year, they ran all over this front seven, and it's pretty much the same personnel in there, minus a couple of transfers, plus a couple of seniors back in McKinley Jackson and a healthy Fadil Diggs. This is going to be an interesting matchup inside. A&M's going to look to right the ship that was so wrong for them last year. But of course, the strengths for Ole Miss don't end there. Jackson Dart, very, in my opinion, underrated quarterback. He's really good. He can run, he can extend plays, he's perfect for what they're trying to do, and that is moving kind of laterally, a lot of rollouts, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of zone reads, RPOs. He fits the system perfectly. So it's no surprise that even though they brought in Spencer Sanders, they got the best out of Jackson Dart, and we're seeing it unfold before our eyes. He has 3 really strong weapons at receiver. All 3 of them are seniors. All 3 of them bring a ton of talent to the table. 2 of them are smaller and quicker types. Watkins, 5'11", great hands, just a great receiver. He returns punts for them. He recently hurt his hand, but it seems like he's coming back into form right about now. Of course, just our luck. He's really solid. He's leading the team in total yardage. Wade, number 19, he's 5'9", but this cat can go. I mean, he's the one that they're utilizing mostly in these jet sweeps and the lateral movement stuff. They're handing him the ball off. They're giving him the ball in screens. He's involved in RPOs. They find ways to get this guy the ball so he can catch and run. All three of these guys are great at catch and run. Even their biggest receiver at 6'2", but Trey Harris, he's their biggest receiver. He can catch and run. He can grab jump balls. This receiver group is solid. A&M secondary definitely has their work cut out for them. It's going to be really important, in my opinion, to get bodies on the ground. Something A&M has done well so far this year. A&M has done a good job of getting players on the ground and limiting gains on these short passes. So as long as A&M continues that trend, they're going to give themselves a chance against what makes these receivers really good. Of course, you assume they're going to target some deep balls against this secondary who has struggled throughout this year defending them. Specifically versus Alabama, I don't have to remind you Aggies about that. But A&M's done some shifting around defensively that, in my opinion, really has shored up that big hole in the defense. They've brought in Deuce Harmon off the bench, young and inexperienced and undersized corner, but he's done a hell of a job in a couple of starts these last two games, putting a cap on those deep balls, moving the very experienced former All-ACC player in Josh DeBerry into nickel, into safety position, kind of rotating him in wherever he's needed, I would assume is what they're going to do with him, because he can play everywhere. He's played everywhere throughout his career, except very limited at corner, and from what we saw this year, definitely not a strong suit. So you hope that helps with this deep ball coverage that plagued A&M very badly in arguably their worst loss of the year versus Bama. So you hope they put a cap on that deep ball, because you know they're going to target it. But it's going to be about discipline. It's going to be about eyes. It's going to be about not taking the eye candy. There's going to be a lot of that stuff, a lot of motion into RPOs going towards the motion, jet sweeps going away from the motion, play action off those jet sweeps. There's going to be a ton of eye candy out there. So you really hope that A&M's defense can remain disciplined. They've been playing really well in recent games. This is a very, very intriguing matchup, this great defense, this great front seven, good defense versus a really, really good offensive attack. Defensively, Ole Miss has actually performed better than most would have expected this year. Their front seven is pretty dang solid. I would put their overall defensive level somewhere between Tennessee's and Auburn's. Auburn being pretty good, but on the lower end of the spectrum in the SEC. Tennessee being good towards the top three of the defenses in the SEC. Maybe you put them third behind Bama and A&M. I'm just spitballing there, but just trying to put a pin on it. They're somewhere between Auburn and Tennessee, in my opinion. They're second in the SEC in total sacks, only behind A&M. A&M has 33 on the year. Ole Miss has 30. Just as a side note, A&M had 19 total sacks last season, I believe, 17 or 19. A&M has well surpassed that with 4 games left on the schedule. Feel really good about that. You really hope that they can bring that on the road at Ole Miss. Going back to their defense, it's just better than you would have expected. Up front, they were able to contain Bama for a half, but in the second half, they kind of broke down. It really felt like Alabama was able to wear that defense down over the course of the game. And then versus LSU, who is by far and away the best offense in the SEC this year, of course, they gave up a ton of yardage and points against LSU. It's no secret that A&M's offense has kind of been on the struggle bus in recent games. Pretty much since the second half of the Arkansas game, A&M's offense has struggled. It's been a slog. It's been a struggle. It seems like every drive is like a desperate effort to make points. At least that's how it feels every game. It feels like points are always at a premium for this offense. They're able to move the ball against Auburn, against Arkansas, against South Carolina last week. But we saw this offense continue to stall in the second half, particularly in second halves. Throughout this year, Auburn in the second half, offense stalled. Arkansas in the second half, offense stalled. Tennessee, Alabama. The list goes on. South Carolina, you settled for 4 field goals instead of scoring a touchdown on any of those 4 trips to plus territory. So that doesn't bode well for A&M against a pretty good defense on the road. A&M was able to move the ball early against Tennessee, but of course, as the game goes on, A&M's offense seems to slow down. And last week, we saw the A&M offense start really slow. So I've been saying that this offense is just bound to be inconsistent this year. Inconsistent from drive to drive. Inconsistent from play to play, from game to game, you name it. You never know what you're going to get on any given drive. Because this offense does have weapons. Young, raw running backs, some of which have shown flashes of really good play. They've all shown flashes. Le'Veon Moss, Reuben Owens, Amari Daniels. They've all shown us something, but nothing consistently. Now, these receivers, they're consistently great when they're able to get the ball in their hands. But that's not something that A&M's been great at. Max Johnson has not been at his best because this O-line has not been at its best. Max Johnson's a player that needs time. This O-line has been very limited this year. I would argue it hasn't been a disaster like many think, but it's definitely not where it should be to have your quarterback perform at his best. Giving up pressure late. He's hitting the ground a lot of times even after he's making completed passes. A lot of the positive plays A&M does have, Max Johnson's on the ground, and it seems to wear on him over the course of games. I think that's partially to blame for the team kind of deteriorating, the offense kind of deteriorating throughout the game. So you really hope that they're able to put a clean game together. We haven't seen it really this year, especially since that Arkansas game, like I mentioned. So it doesn't bode well for this offense against a pretty good defense, especially on the road. So I'm really nervous there as an Aggie fan. That's what really gives me pause about A&M's chances this game. The data points are there. You know, there's 4 games left on the year. And from what we've seen recently, this offense just isn't high level. But like I said, we've seen flashes. Can they put it together for a full game on the road? Can this team come together on the road and get over that hump finally? So overall, I like A&M's defensive chances to put a cap on Ole Miss's scoring. I think Ole Miss is averaging 38 points a game. I don't think they get that high. I think they get pretty close because it's a good offense over there, and they're going to scheme up success. It's just what Lane Kiffin does. Charlie Weiss is going to have a part in that. I mean, it's been a great offensive program since Lane got there. It's just what they do. But I like A&M's front 7 against the running attack. Of course, they're going to want to get Quinshon Judkins involved. If A&M can make them one-dimensional, that's their best chance. But they didn't do it last year. And offensively, you know, I feel like points are once again going to be at a premium for A&M. It's going to be about dialing up the right plays at the right time. I like the quicker concepts. Just get your playmakers the ball in their hands. I hope they do that more than we've seen all year this game. I hope Jimbo feels the pressure. He knows his back's against the wall. Last week, we saw Jimbo give a little bit, going for more 4th downs, throwing a quarterback sneak in there, calling a timeout before the half to try to get more aggressive and get points on the board, understanding the value of that. You know, I hope he keeps leaning more that aggressive direction overall in his philosophies and his concepts and just gets the balls in the hands of your Evan Stewarts, your Aniyah Smiths, Noah Thomas. Hopefully he's fully healthy and ready to go. So with that, my score prediction, I have this game 31-20 Ole Miss. Unfortunately, I know at this point in time, if I'm putting my life savings on it, I'm not betting A&M in this game. And I'm just trying to give you my real honest prediction here. Obviously, I'm going to be elated if A&M wins this game, and I think they have a chance to do it. It's just going to be a matter of can they put the first full, clean offensive game together. We haven't seen it. There's no evidence for it. We've seen it in flashes. Can they put it together for a game? I think this defense keeps you in any game at home or on the road, but you got to score over 30 to give yourself a chance. So guys, what is your score prediction? What do you think of my breakdown, my evaluation of the game? Do you guys think I'm giving Ole Miss too much credit, not enough credit? Do you think I'm giving A&M enough credit defensively and offensively? Do you guys believe this offense can get it going on the road? I don't know. Give me your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you after the game. It's going to be a good one. I've been looking forward to it. I think A&M definitely has a chance. It's going to be a close game. We're going to be into this game. It's going to go down to the 4th quarter, I believe. But I do think Ole Miss wins it. So guys, with that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, and gig 'em.